Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video takes place in 2026, week 4, January 19th through the 25th, and we are just continuing to strip down the driver's side quarter. So I got most all the big areas done. Now I've kind of switched over to my little die grinder and a Scotch-Brite roll-lock wheel. It's just a 2-inch roll-lock, and as before, this is a super messy job. Looks like I might not be wearing my breather right now. Kind of dumb. But I will fix that, I think. Yeah, I mean, this is just a time-consuming job. I'm trying to clean off all of the old colors, specifically the black and then whatever was under it. I know that when we painted the car black when I got it, we may not have necessarily cleaned all of the paint that was underneath perfectly, so there may have been some clear that we didn't actually cut through before we painted, which is usually not a great thing. I think you usually want to clear or get all of the clear off and then paint. But yeah, so we are just going to keep stripping this down. All right, so the passenger side is pretty much all done. I got all of the leftover like window epoxy out of the trim there, or out of the A-pillar. And so now we're just gonna do some cleanup. And I already had most of this side done and off, but what you saw me taking off there still makes a massive mess. Like, there's just so much crap that came off of this. And if you're doing a job like this, cleanup is just part of that. And like, I'll tell you, I've blown the car off several times, and like when you blow the car off, there's a bunch of dust in the air, so it takes a few days of blowing everything out for it to all settle down and kind of hit the ground. So before I paint this, I'm gonna have to blow this off a couple more times, or at least before I prime it, I'm gonna have to blow it off a couple more times because I want all the paint to stick. Yeah, so with that cleanup done, we are going to jump onto the driver's side here. And you may notice as I start getting into this, a lot of white snow or powder or material is coming off of this fender. And that's because years and years ago, this car was in an accident, and the body shop that I took it to apparently was not as good as I thought they might be. And they pretty much bondoed this quarter panel front to back. Like, there was not a single bit of it that didn't have like a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch of bondo on it. I was quite surprised. I didn't think it was ever going to be that much. I genuinely wish I had taken the car to another shop to be repaired, because just a ton of bondo on this thing. I mean, I guess fortunately it didn't crack, but still, like, just an absolute ton. right, so that's pretty much the driver's side stripped down. One thing I want to mention is, as I'm going through this, you'll see that, on my tool there, I'm fairly consistently switching out the wheel that I'm using. And you can see there's, I don't know, a dozen discarded wheels on the ground. And that's because those little Scotch-Brite Rolocs are what's called a consumable. And as the name implies, you will consume them as you're using them. So, doing a job like this, it's not just the cost of the paint, it's not just the time, it's also the consumables and materials you got to keep in mind. Yeah, so with the driver's side done, I'm gonna start doing some cleanup, and man, that Bondo made a massive mess, way more than the driver's side, and that white powder got absolutely everywhere. Like my bench was covered in Bondo dust. It wasn't that bad after I did the passenger side, but I'm glad that I took the time to strip this down, because now I know that it was just all Bondo. So, I am not a body person. I'm not a body man. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try. So, what I've done is I'm taking all the plastic off of the back because I need access to the inside of the quarter in order to try and fix this. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to get a hammer and dolly, and I'm going to start trying to beat some of this metal. Now, metal can stretch, metal can shrink, and when the metal gets hit or when you're in an accident and it buckles, it does both. Some areas shrink, some areas stretch. So hammer and dolly, great for stretching out metal, kind of moving it around a little bit. But at the end of the day, if you really want to move metal and do some of the things I need to do, you need to use some heat. I'm quite saddened that the body shop that I originally took this to obviously did not put a hammer and dolly to this in any way, shape, or form to try and get it any better. Because had they spent, I spent maybe an hour to 2 hours, and I didn't get it perfect, don't get me wrong, but I got it much, much better, to a point where I think I'll be rather happy when I put paint on this, and when I prime it and I block it out, it'll be way better. I shouldn't need as much filler. But yeah, so the wheel well is all bent up, the quarter panel is all bent up, so I am just doing my best to beat this straight. And then what you're going to see me do is actually get my oxyacetylene torch out. I put the brazing head on it, and then by using some heat in some of the high areas, what I do is I heat it up. I take the ballpoint hammer, I put a big dent right in the middle of where I heat it up, and then with a hammer and dolly I shrink the metal. So what I do is from that point that I struck, I use the hammer and dolly outside of that, and what happens is it pushes all of that metal into the center and shrinks it down. So that's how I can get rid of some of the high spots, is just by shrinking the metal like that. That's great in the areas where I have access to pull out or to deal with the high spots. So as you can see, I'm not even done, but this is just a lot of work, and especially since I am not a body guy. Like, you've seen the extent of the body work that I have done on this channel, so I am 100% legitimately figuring this out as I go. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just figuring it out. I'm just, as I go, it's like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, watch some YouTube videos, learn what some of the other guys show me, try and apply that. And I'm not trying to make this perfect, I'm trying to make it better than it was. So I got the rear quarter kind of as good as I'm going to get it. Like, I know I'll never get it perfect. I'm going to have to use a little bit of Bondo. That's fine. I'm just feeling the panel and I'm finding some of the low spots. And, you know, I ran over to the other side to compare it because I was like, you know, this is kind of a transition area. Maybe it is supposed to be a little bit low there, but it's not. So I've marked out 2 of the low spots. Now, I don't have the tool required to deal with this. So there is what's called a stud welder, and it does exactly what the name implies. It welds a little stud to the metal, and then you can use a special plier to pull on that stud and pull on the metal. So as I said, I don't have one, but I'm very fortunate that a friend has one, and he lent it to me. So as soon as I get done with this fender well and we jump to the next day, you'll see me start using it. And just like that, we do a time warp. It's the next day. So effectively that big tool there, that big gun, is effectively a welder in the palm of your hand. Thing's heavy. Thing's probably 15 pounds. I'd say 10 to 15 pounds, easy. So what it does is it just welds that little stud onto the metal, and then I can use that tool against the body panel. I can pull on it, and you got to be very careful. This thing welds pretty quick, so if you're not careful, you'll just melt it, put a hole through. Fortunately, my friend told me about that, so I didn't. I got perfect adhesion on each one. Wasn't too little, wasn't too much. And then when you're done, what you do is you just cut the tips off, and then you grind them flush. There's another little area here where this trim panel goes that was pushed in. So I'm just, pulling that out and getting that done up. And then I'll go on to the two low spots that I circled. am so pleased with how that turned out. On the back one, after I ground all the studs off and ground them flush, I couldn't even detect a low spot or a high spot. It was just perfect. So yeah, very, very happy. Now on this front one where I only had the 2 studs there, unfortunately I did still feel a bit of a low spot, and normally my mentality would be, whatever, it's good enough. I can just fix it with a little bit of Bondo. But then I was like, dude, like, you got the tool here. What are you doing? Why are you half-assing this? So I eventually just went back to the bench, grabbed the tool that, wasn't hard, and then fixed it properly. I go back and I actually put the studs back on there, and I fix it properly. So yeah, here I'm feeling it. I'm like, there's a low spot. So I'm like, okay, don't be a lazy prick. Just go get the tool. It's right there on the bench. Take 5 seconds. Yes, you already cleaned up. Yes, you already put your hammers and dollies away. But, just do it. What's it going to hurt? It's 30 seconds. Oh, probably 5 minutes, but whatever. Just do it. Just do it right. You got the tool. Just do it. And that's why I keep telling myself, just do it. Like, as you can see, this was nothing, and now it's way better. It's almost perfect. So with the inner fender more or less fixed, I'm going to retape this rear area because I do still need to paint the outside of the car before I block, but I need this hatch taped off because I don't want to get primer and paint all over my beautiful interior. right, now that that's all done, we can start cleaning up the rear trim panel. So I don't 100% do in the patch or in the hatch area, I should say, not the patch area, in the hatch area, only because I can't really get my tool in there. But I can absolutely clean up the rest of this back piece. As is the way, now that's all clean, time for some cleanup. So just start by blowing off the car, and you can kind of see in the video, I mean, it's kind of hard to see, especially with the lights flickering a bit. But when I blow off the car, like, there was so much dust in the air, like, it's thick. And, you know, it lingers around for a while. So, you can, like, I'm blowing off the floor, blowing that all to the front. But, you know, after 5-10 minutes, and then overnight as the rest of it settles, like, there's just another layer on the floor. So, you know, before I properly spray base, after I do all my blocking and stuff, I'm gonna have to, you know, blow it off, clean it off, like probably 2-3 days in a row, and then wet the floor so that any leftover dust doesn't get picked up. So yeah, it's gonna be a process when I paint this, but I am excited to paint it because I think it's gonna turn out really well. I hope it turns out really well. Alright, so most of that cleanup is done. I'm going to give you a shot of the bench here because it is a filthy mess. And if you look here, that bench is a little bit cleaner now. So I did clean up the bench off camera. I just like, whatever, it's fine. But we are going to start patching this little bit of cancer, as my wife called it. So right in this driver's side quarter, right at the bottom, there is a good chunk of rust. It has, you know, gone through. I can't just, you know, weld it up a little bit. So just doing a little bit of masking tape aided design, a little bit of MAD, and just doing this the old fashioned way. So yes, I could have 3D scanned it. Yes, I could have like CNC cut out a part, but for my limited skills in those departments, it's actually probably quicker for me to just do it this way. So yeah, so we are going to trim up the tape, get it taped onto the metal, cut the metal out, trim the metal up, and then we will do the bends and do some of the forming of that one little area where it rises, and then we'll put it on the car, mark it out on the car, cut it out, trim it out, and after we get around there, I'll probably start talking a little bit more. right. So with that piece cut out, on the inside of the rocker or the quarter there's this chunk of, what is that, like seam sealer or something like that. And it was loose. So I didn't want it flopping around in there and, like, you know, as you're driving down the road, banging away inside there. Even though with the new engine, I probably won't hear much. Still, don't want to take that risk. So I'm just going ahead and I am using a pry bar, a couple of pry bars just to kind of work it all out of there. And it ends up being a fairly big chunk. And there's still some seam sealer between the panels, so I'm not really too concerned about it. Yeah, so with that out, I can continue fitting this, just continue trimming both the, mainly just trimming the actual patch panel because I don't want to, you know, remove too much of the original metal. It'd be fairly easy to, you know, make another patch panel if I had to. Yeah, so just going ahead and putting that all together, fitting it up. Now that I've got the piece fitted up, what I want to do is I want to take some of my rust inhibitor and just kind of coat all the metal inside as much as I can, just because I want to stop the rust from spreading. You know, there may not be a whole lot that I can do, but you know, I'm gonna do as much as I can to stop the rust from spreading. All right, after another time warp, you can see that a lot of that rust inhibitor is like black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up some of the areas where I'm going to be welding. And what I'll do is I will spray those areas with this weldable primer. Now, technically, I could have sprayed that on the inside a little bit, and I did. But I did the rust inhibitor because I wanted to stop the rust from spreading anymore. So I had already sprayed the back of that patch panel with the weld through primer because I don't want the back of that to rust. So now we are just going to weld in and grind this piece and just get it installed. Well, folks, as that is it for this little patch on the driver's side quarter panel, that is also all the time that we have for this week. So, as always, if you've stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you for viewing. We'll see you in the next one.